British expression that means in a state of total confusion is the inspiration for the title of a new exhibit now showing at Gallery 625 in Woodland. At Sixes and Sevens features a group of artists who came together during the disarray of the pandemic for virtual painting sessions with well-known Northern California painter and Davis resident Phil Gross. As Phil explains, while the world was hunkering down, these artists dived into painting, many for the first time, and created a fascinating body of new works, each intriguingly different from the other. The work includes portraits by Lynn Christensen, fabric art by Ruth Santer, still life by Victoria Whitworth, a scroll of train paintings by Jan Garrison, and lyrical landscapes by Spring Warren, Mark Spencer, and Steve Wilson. And now, some of the artists will talk about their work.
Hi, I'm Victoria Whitworth, and these are 3 of my pieces in the show. Art was my first love. When I graduated high school, I really wanted to be a graphic designer, and but I wasn't able to at the time. And so I went into another field. I ended up studying literature instead of art, but it's always been a love of mine. And I have many sketchbooks, and I used to do a lot of watercolor. And I've done almost every medium except oil. And oil was the big looming kind of, what's the word? It was always something that I was a little afraid of. Phil and I are good friends, and he knew that I'd always wanted. I needed a little nudging and some tuition in oils because they were so unfamiliar, and he's been absolutely wonderful in kind of mentoring me. I don't know if the rest of our group really needed mentoring, and kind of teaching how to use the medium. They all sort of sprang right into it, and were brilliant. But I've been helped a lot by Phil. I wanted to know how to make something look really solid, like you could just reach in and pick it up and drink from the wine glass and so on. So I'm really particularly interested in glass and the light and shadows and gleams and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I'm quite proud of my pot. It's so magic, what paint can do. I just am fascinated with what you can do with it. Not just representational, although that's what I'm focused on now, but just the wonderful alternatives. So it was so great to have that weekly Zoom session. Even though we were sitting quietly painting, we were all together and via our computers, and it was just lovely. It was wonderful to be able to learn something and practice something in the midst of not being able to do much at all. So it was a blessing. I'm just thrilled with this show because everybody's work is so fun and so delightful and so completely different. Just to see what others do with the medium of oil paint has really it's inspiring. I love this show. I think it's a great mix of styles.
My name is Jan Garrison, and I'm from Long Beach, California, and I've been making things since I was, a kid. I made this train graffiti piece basically because I was walking by these graffiti trains all the time, and I started really taking an interest in them, and they changed every time I walked by. And I started making postcards out of them because I just loved the paint on the old surfaces and where they were on this track. And I had purchased this scroll for another project, but then I realized they were just perfect for the train cars, and they would kind of simulate the way I see them, which is periodically going by and just seeing an individual one, but with a train in my head. It's 22 feet long. It has 31 different train vignettes. These train cars happen to be on a route that I was taking regularly to visit my sister. And so I started taking photographs of them to make the postcards, and then I was amassing quite a lot of photos of them. So I had a lot to choose from. During the pandemic, I probably really devoted more time to the project. Before, I had been doing it in between doing other projects, because I could always just pick it up again, get another picture off my phone. But I just had more time, I think, and I was doing it more methodically and really working towards finishing the scroll. I didn't learn as much about graffiti as I had hoped I would by recreating it. It's still just as mysterious to me, though, and that's the fun of it, I guess. So it's okay. And I'm just marvel at the people who do it, because those train cars start up here. So to paint up the entire train car is quite the project, and that paint is expensive. I took the energy that they were expending on their train cars, and I used that for my really comfortable setup of making the paintings.
Okay, my name is Mark Spencer, and I am primarily have been a sculptor. And over the years, I did a lot of assemblage pieces and ceramic masks and figures. And so painting was something that was relatively, not entirely, but relatively new to me. And it presented challenges in a couple of areas, one of which was composition. And the challenge was that with sculpture, I don't really have composition. You have issues of volume and symmetry and balance, and that's quite different from coming up with a composition in a two-dimensional space, where you're taking something you see, which is three-dimensional, and then converting it into a two-dimensional surface. The solution for me was an ancient Egyptian fresco that I had used decades ago to paint a canvas floor covering out of sail canvas, and it represented a garden pond with trees arrayed around it, date palms, sycamores, and they pointed in different directions. It had a map-like perspective, not a Renaissance perceptual perspective. And so that proved to be the catalyst for what I did with my paintings. So that was a compositional sort of, I don't call it an insight, but a device that I used so that I could represent all of the elements in what was my COVID confines of the backyard. So rather than representing something which was more of a narrow space, I was able to lay it out more like a map. This painting adventure, when I moved from sculpture to painting, happened actually on an afternoon walk. I ran into Phil, who I had known years ago and over the years, and he mentioned that he was doing a sort of a painting get-together with some artists, and he asked me if I was interested in joining him, and so I said sure. So Thursday nights for the last couple of years, we Zoomed together, and the sessions begin with a sort of back and forth colloquy about what we've been up to. So it was quite useful, and then we would resolve into our own little separate spaces. We'd all be on camera, Zoom-wise, and we would occasionally, we'd mute ourselves, and then occasionally we would unmute and ask somebody a question, and people would come back to the screen and then disperse again. And so it was sort of an ebb and flow of working kind of together alone. And then at the end of the sessions, oftentimes we would all come together and sort of say, well, this is what I did, this is what I did. And so it was quite useful, and sort of broached the isolation of the pandemic. You know, the other interesting thing about this, and I think one of the reasons why we all chose the title of Sixes and Sevens, was there was a great deal of diversity. All of us had maybe different objectives, and we came to it with different skill sets to some degree. And so I don't think it's so much that we inspired one another, is that we look to each other to be effective sounding boards, and people who would give us feedback on things, and we could also offer feedback to them. Because I think if you look at the exhibit, the pieces that are here are all quite different. I guess I'd like to thank YOLO Arts and to thank Phil Gross for making it possible as well by arranging it, by being the interface for us.
At Sixes and Sevens is on view at Gallery 625 through February 1st and can also be seen in YOLO Arts' online gallery at yoloarts.org.